Welcome to The Link Online. Well, here we are once again coming to you live on Facebook on a Friday and, of course, on a Saturday and a Sunday as well later on. And, of course, you can join us live as well if you look on our website and be able to maybe even send us a message if you want, and we'll take a look at it and perhaps we can even answer it online. You never know with this show. I'm here with the regular team, Lynn Desjardins.
Hi there.
Levon Savunts.
Hello there.
And a special guest, Wei Wu.
Hi.
And Marie-Claude Simard.
Hi, everybody.
Oh, you have to turn on the mic. There.
Hi, everybody.
It works so much better when it's lit up.
It makes, yeah.
And, of course, we have Chantal Saint-Sauveur once again in behind the control room, wondering what the heck we're doing most of the time. And overseeing it all is our benevolent overlord, as they say, on public radio in the United States, Pierre Dutil. We have a lot of interesting things coming up on the show. Lynn, let's start out with you.
Well, I'll tell you why Canadian teens are not getting enough sleep and what the consequences are.
Okay, Levon?
And I'll talk about measures announced by Ottawa to prevent foreign interference in the upcoming federal election.
And we hear about a pilot program called Loop, which is designed to reduce plastic waste. An old concept becomes new once again. And in a moment, we'll start with our special guest to talk about Chinese New Year. And here we have Wei Wu joins us from our Chinese language section here at Radio Canada International. And we have Chinese New Year coming up. When is that exactly?
Yeah, it's next Tuesday, February 5th. So if a baby is born in the night between Monday and Tuesday after midnight, he will be born in the year of pig. I don't want to say he will be a pig. I think the parents will not like it. But if before midnight, it's still the year of dog.
So we're in the dog year.
You're in the dog and the pig.
We're in the dog years now. What year is that though? I mean, in terms like this is our year is like 2019. What year is it in the Chinese New Year?
It's we still use it. Yes, 2019. Yes,
oh, okay.
2019. Yes.
All right. So, what are the characteristics of this year of the pig, coming up?
Yeah, this is for parents, and I think it's a favorite year for the baby. A baby, it's especially for girls. I think it's a good year. People like to think that a boy be born in this year that means good luck and very easy-going. I think this is true because I have a few friends and I have a sister, a niece, my next. A lot of people born in this year. It's true. It's their common character is they are very easygoing.
How often?
Good luck, yeah. Generally, yeah, lucky. Being lucky, yeah.
Now, I just wonder, how often do these years come back around? Because if you look on the internet, it'll say, 1932, 1942.
Every 12 years.
12 years.
Yeah, last time it's, I think, 2007.
Okay.
Yeah, every 12 years. So, and this year for the people, for if you are born, if it's your year, it seems for Chinese, a lot of Chinese believe that you have to be careful. Strangely, it's not a year which brings you luck. It seems brings you more problem. Be sick or some problem like that. I don't know why. It's generally it should be a lucky year, but no.
Okay, so there is perhaps a bad year in amongst all these snakes and dogs and pigs and so on, right?
Yeah, I don't. It's not for everybody. For people who is born in the year of pig, and when every 12 years coming, you have to be careful. People believe that carry something red on you, like a bracelet, something like that.
Jewelry, a shirt, whatever.
This. And I guess for Chinese immigrant here, it's still a very important day, New Year. But it's like Christmas. It's mostly for family. So if you have grandparents, parents, children, grandchildren, it will be very, very important. Otherwise...
To bring them all together.
Yes, it's really for family and for social contact. But here, like, we don't really have the day off. So it's if you have to work.
However,
If you have to party.
I have made my reservation in Chinatown for a great big dinner with my family because
Really?
we're not Chinese, but we certainly feel Chinese on New Year's Day, and we celebrate and we go out and have
on
Chinese
Tuesday
food.
night,
Every reason is good.
Every reason is good.
Yes.
Isn't Chinese New Year in China an occasion for mass migration of people back and forth across the country? I seem to recall a documentary film like that.
Yeah, it's it seems there's more than 100 million people who migrant workers. They go home generally from south and east towards west and north. So it's really it seems it's the biggest migration on the planet.
And this-
so if you
yeah.
feel the planet is like that, they are responsible.
Yeah, like I say, there's an award-winning documentary that was produced not long ago by a Chinese Canadian who went to China and documented this migration. It's incredible. I mean, millions of people in these towns like Guangzhou, which
Yeah,
is an industrial town,
Yeah.
and all these migrant workers get on board trains. They're fighting for room on the trains to get home because it's such a long journey to get to some of these places in
Yeah.
China, which is a huge country. That you don't want to miss a train.
It's extremely important for them to get home before this dinner, the dinner in the 30th, evening.
Is there a special type of meal? I mean, in North America, theoretically, it's turkey, for
No,
Thanksgiving
no,
and
no,
New
no.
Year's and stuff.
Probably in locally in every region, province, they have something. It has to be there. It has to be there. But generally, no. But a lot of meat. It's for sure. A lot of meat.
Would they eat pork? This is the year of the pig. Are they?
They're going to eat pork. We're going to eat pork anyway.
Well, Wei Wu, thank you so much for coming in and telling us a little bit about Chinese New Year coming up.
It's my pleasure.
Next week, next Tuesday, right?
Yes, next Tuesday.
All
Mark,
right.
my next column is going to be on a dish served at the Chinese New Year. I just want to say
well,
that. Yeah.
That'll be great.
I'll bring maybe some next week. If,
Excellent.
Friday.
Oh, great.
So we need to learn how to say it in Mandarin.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Happy New Year.
过年好.
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 Yeah.
Okay.
All right, there you go. Wei Wu, thank you so much for this.
Thank
My
you.
pleasure. Bye-bye.
Well, Canadians are going to be heading to the polls in October to elect the next federal government, and Ottawa wants to make sure that, unlike the elections in the U.S., Germany, and France, there is no foreign interference. And Lavon, you looked into the story. What is the current Liberal government planning?
Well, earlier this week, federal officials in Ottawa unveiled a series of measures to beef up Canada's electoral system against foreign interference. And they're looking into enhancing their ability to defend what they call the democratic process from cyber threats and disinformation. So they talked about the fact that Canada still uses paper ballots. They're not that concerned about somebody going in and, changing electronically the tallies and stuff like that. But it's other things that they're concerned with. These new measures were unveiled by three cabinet ministers, Minister of Democratic Institutions Karina Gould, Public Safety Minister Ralph Goodale, and Defense Minister Harjit Sajjan. And it focuses on these four areas, taking proactive measures to combat foreign interference, enhancing citizen preparedness, so you and I making sure that we know what it is when we're not sharing fake stories, fake news, improving coordination between Canada's security agencies, so you have the two ministers responsible for defense and the security agencies, and also a big responsibility, a big ask from the social media giants like Facebook and Twitter to make sure that they don't share, things like fake news and suppress accounts that do this. There's a whole series of measures that the governments want these social media giants to follow. And so here's Public Safety Minister Ralph Goodale explaining the problem and that Canada and other Western countries are facing.
From time immemorial, governments worldwide have been engaged in efforts to mold public opinion and government policies in other countries to advance their own interests. And as long as that is done in an open, peaceful, transparent manner within the law, it's fine. It's called diplomacy or treaty negotiations. Our Team Canada efforts to shape opinions and build support in the United States for NAFTA are a very good example. All very public, factual, lawful, no basis for any objection. But when that type of activity becomes covert or clandestine, when it consists of lies and disinformation aimed at misleading people, destabilizing the economy or society, or manipulating the democratic process, a bright red line gets crossed. It could be the old-fashioned way, hostile intelligence services collecting or stealing political, economic, commercial, or military information. Or it could be foreign agents providing illegal funds to support candidates or bribe officials. Or it could be cultivating personal or financial ties to coerce or manipulate diaspora. Increasingly, the interference is higher tech. Social media have been used to falsely slander elected officials. Trolls and bots are dispatched to stoke anxiety, even hysteria around sensitive issues. Fake news masquerades as legitimate information. As we've seen, these issues are of deep concern among G7 and Five Eyes partners. The Americans were obviously affected in 2016. In fact, both parties were hacked. Botnets were rampant. One study estimates that about 1/5 of all tweets posted during the final month of the 2016 U.S. campaign were generated by bots. So this wasn't citizens intensely engaged in the democratic process. Instead, it was contrived and electronically generated meddling intended to pervert the conversation. In France, botnets were used to promote false and defamatory propaganda against the leading candidate. In Germany, in the 2017 parliamentary elections, 7 of the 10 most shared articles about Angela Merkel, as posted on Facebook, were false. There is no doubt that covert and corrupt activities originating in foreign capitals are taking place. They're intended to corrode systems and institutions and pervert the course of democracy.
And that was Canada's Public Safety Minister, Ralph Goodale, speaking during this announcement in Ottawa earlier this week. The federal government is also setting up a 5-person panel of senior bureaucrats. Their job is to sound the alarm when security agencies detect a serious attempt to meddle in the election by a foreign actor. And they're also setting up a new task force composed of members of Canada's security and intelligence agencies. And the job of this task force is to try to prevent clandestine forces, foreign governments, criminal groups, hackers, and etc. from influencing the electoral process. So we'll see how it goes in October.
Yeah, and the opposition has been critical that they are asking the social media giants to act on this and not obliging them, as what appears to be going on in the U.S.
This was the big issue. There's the language that the government used was we expect the social media.
And we ask. Both of those terms were used. So
I'm just wondering, though, I mean, couldn't it not be difficult to determine what is actually, fake news or something? If you disagree with the government or something, are they going to say, "Oh, that's"?
Yeah.
I see some sort of gray zones.
And these gray zones were raised by Nathan Collin, who is the critic for the New Democratic Party, when he was responding to this announcement, saying, "You know what? There is serious issues," and one of his biggest concerns was that Canada's chief electoral officer is not included in this 5-person panel of senior bureaucrats that includes people from the Privy Council, from the Foreign Affairs, from the
3 ministers.
3, yeah.
Deputy ministers.
They're
whose
all
jobs actually depend on the government.
Yeah, so there are a lot of questions on, what happens if, somebody posts news that the government is not happy about. Are they just going to be able to say, "Oh, this is fake news," or and also, like, even during normal campaigns, all political parties resort to spin. So where do you draw the line? Is this spin? Is this mostly false, partly false?
Yeah, sometimes they can skirt along the edge of the truth.
Absolutely.
They did try to emphasize that it was about foreign interference.
Yes. So what they said was that this is against foreign interference because against domestic actors, the Canada's the Election Act already has measures to deal with misinformation and stuff like that by domestic actors.
Well, it seems like an interesting situation, and we'll see how this plays out as time goes along. Coming up, we're going to take a look at, we're going to have a little nap. Or maybe not. We'll find out. Well, there have been studies that suggest that many Canadians are not getting enough sleep. But the problem seems to be particularly acute for teenagers. And Lynn, this is a story that you had.
Yes, Mark, there are actually 2 aspects to this. And one is why adolescents are not getting enough shut-eye. And secondly, what the consequences might be. Well, the Canadian Pediatric Society recommends that teens get between 8 and 10 hours of sleep a night. There is a widespread belief that they do not get that much, although it's hard to get data on exactly how much they are getting. I put the question to Dr. Christopher Winter. He's a neurologist, sleep specialist, and author of a book called The Sleep Solution.
I think the average teenager is probably getting, I can definitely say they're probably not getting enough sleep, that 9 to 10 hour mark that they should be striving for. By some studies, school age, older teenagers, college students can be getting as little as 6 hours of sleep on average, which is woefully inadequate, even though they will tell you because they know everything that they feel fine, and that's plenty.
Why are they not getting enough sleep?
Well, I think they're not getting enough sleep for a lot of reasons. I think, number one, there's a lot of obstacles and distractions that get in their way. Sleep is fun, but watching Game of Thrones is a lot more fun. And you know what? Why watch one episode when you can watch 7 straight on your phone right there shining in your face when you're lying in bed at night? So I think the amount of technological distraction, texts from your friends, Snapchat, Instagram, YouTube videos of cats playing pianos, or even, academically worthwhile pursuits, watching a documentary or doing things, all that stuff is right there at your fingertips. If we don't, have times during the 24-hour period where we're disconnected. I also think schools bear some responsibility. I'm just baffled by the amount of homework and responsibility that's sort of put on my children from the high school. We have 3 tests tomorrow, Dad, and we didn't know about 2 of them until today. Just that kind of stuff, just over and over. I can't wait for summertime. And even it's funny that on vacations and all these times, if we can just make it to Christmas vacation or winter break, that will be great. And the problem is that schools can kind of reach into that now too. My kid will be suddenly doing something. What are you doing? It's a Saturday. I've got a paper due tonight at midnight. I have to turn it in electronically. I'm thinking, wow, you can't just leave these kids alone on a Saturday and Sunday and just kind of pick things up next week. So I just feel like the ability for for kids to sort of disconnect from school, disconnect from electronics really makes it hard for them to settle and go to sleep appropriately.
Why is it particularly important for teens to get enough sleep?
They're still developing, particularly neurologically. So I think that we have to look at these kids as, we look at a baby and think, oh, we've got to get the baby sleeping just right and eating just right, and he's been out too late, we've got to go home and sleep now, we can't stay here any longer. We're so protective of little ones when it comes to their sleep and their development. Yet for some reason, once a kid starts to have a little hair, popping out underneath his armpit, we just suddenly let them do whatever they want to do. And I think we have to be very particular and careful about those individuals too, because they don't manifest the lack of sleep the way we would expect an adult to, but they still suffer the consequences psychologically. They don't learn as well. They're more prone to have difficulties with attention or ADHD types of things, more problems, depression and anxiety, all these things that we may not recognize right away or simply not recognize as a consequence of bad sleep.
So Dr. Christopher Winter has several suggestions to help teens get more sleep. Among them, he says parents should be tough and insist there be no electronic devices in the bedroom. Well, good luck with that. He says teens will find all kinds of excuses and even try to sneak devices in. But he says parents should remain firm and insist that things like cell phones be left to charge in the kitchen. He also says when his own children stay up late to complete last-minute assignments and tests, he sometimes lets them sleep in the next day, and he writes a note to the school explaining why they will be coming in late. He says getting enough sleep is serious and that we should all actually be paying attention to it.
Yes, electronic devices. I remember when I was a kid, we'd be in bed.
With the transistor radio.
With a six transistor radio with an earplug, and if you got an 8 transistor radio, oh boy, that was better, those were the days. Radio. All right, we're going to be talking about plastics coming up. Well, hands up all those amongst us here in the studio and there on the other side of the glass who diligently take their plastic containers and they wash them and put them in the recycle bin. Very good. And the other aspect of that is that most of those plastics never get recycled. Only about 10%. You put your plastic. This was a study that we did, or not we did, but we reported on just a little while ago. So here we are, putting all our plastics into the recycling bin, and they're not getting recycled. So there's a new idea that has come up, and what it is called the loop, or simply loop. And the idea is not recycle, simply reuse. And what they do is, this is a company that's, or an environmental type of organization, I should say, that has got together some of the big names in manufacturing, like PepsiCo and Nestle and others like that. And they will sell their products online, Nivea, this kind of thing. They'll sell their products online. So you order it online, it's delivered to you, you use it, and then you sort of clean up the container, put it in a bin outside called the loop bin. And when it's full, you call the company, they come and pick it up. Goes back to the original, goes back to the distributor and back to the company. They refill it and resell it as a product again. So it never gets up into the waste stream anywhere. So it doesn't have to be recycled, which also implies some energy loss and everything else. And it doesn't end up in landfill or the oceans or something. And that's important because there's another study that said within our lifetime, the amount of plastic in the ocean will weigh more than all the fish in the ocean. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so I spoke to Vito Buonsante, who's the plastics program manager with Environmental Defense, and he explains the concept in this excerpt about loop.
So it's going to start with only about 300 products, and they will range from detergents to like mouthwashes and even ice cream. And the system is going to work in this way that people are going to buy them online, they're going to be delivered to them, and once they're done, they put them in a tote bag, in a reusable bag, leave them outside home, and the Loop folks come to pick it up, sanitize it, refill it, and bring it back. So zero waste.
Where is this program going to start, or has it started already?
Well, they announced that it will be starting this spring, 2019, in France, in the region of Paris, but also in New York area in the U.S., including some parts of New Jersey and Pennsylvania. And hopefully, we will also have it in Canada for those that are based in Toronto. It may start at the end of 2019 as a pilot or beginning of 2020 in the area of Toronto.
What about limitations to something like this?
Well, there are several. Obviously, it depends on how scaled up the project will be. And from my point of view, it will most likely all depend on the affordability. So what is going to be the price tag to create no waste? It's going to be more expensive to create no waste than use these disposable products. That's going to be the big question, because otherwise consumers, in the majority, unless they are very committed to a zero-waste life, they will go for the cheaper option. And on top of that is that this represents a large part of the market, but not the entire market. So what we need is some policies to level the playing field in favor of less plastic waste.
Now, if you have companies delivering this stuff and then coming to pick it back up when it's empty and then bringing it back when it's full again, does that not imply other problems like simply pollution from engines delivering this stuff back and forth?
Possibly so. I mean, my hope is that this is a pilot that is going to start from online shopping, but then it's going to be, if it's successful, it's going to be scaled up to any possible way of shopping. So even going to the supermarket and returning your empties, like in many places where there are deposit return schemes. But I mean, at this stage, I wouldn't be so worried about those implications, because I don't have the numbers with me right now, but I imagine that online shopping and shopping through Amazon, it became very mainstream, and so that can it's just going to be additional to the large amount of online shopping that already happens.
Well, Mr. Buonsante, are there better or other ways we can deal with plastic waste and excess?
Well, I think we need to kind of make an audit of our consumeristic society. We need to try to minimize the amount of throwaway plastic that we use. Or let's say we need to transition from this idea that we can throw away materials that can last forever in the environment and we can use them only for a few minutes or a few days or a few months. So I think this kind of initiative is a step in the right direction, but it needs to be mainstream, which gives us a signal to us and also to policymakers that change is possible, and we don't need to wait a huge amount of time. Change is possible right now.
And that was Vito Buonsante, Plastics Program Manager with Environmental Defense, explaining the concept in that excerpt of our conversation about a pilot project that is coming to several locations called Loop. And I think he said it's going to start in Paris and also in New York City and possibly eventually come to Toronto a little bit later in this year or perhaps early next year. So there you have it, an idea that maybe will work to help cut down on plastics.
I wonder why don't they use more glass? I mean, I grew up in Soviet Union, and I remember that every neighborhood had this return stations where you would return plastic glass containers, because milk, yogurt, everything that was liquid was in standardized glass containers, and once you wash it, you return it, and you got your concession back, and it got reused every time. Everything was standard. You didn't have 10 types of bottles for wine. There was like 2 or 3, and it was very easy to return.
Well, I think that it's a question of people wanting convenience, because certainly milk used to be recycle.
Yes.
I mean,
but it's also marketing, I think, because every company wants to have a different shape of bottle, a different style of bottle, different colors.
You can have them on your stickers. We do that with cigarette packaging. We have uniform packages for cigarettes. Why not do it for?
But the fight was unbelievable to finally get that through.
But we
marketing forces.
We used to have the stubby beer bottles. Okay. all the manufacturers, the big manufacturers, had the exact same bottle. The only thing that was different was the label, so that when you returned the bottles, it didn't matter which label you had.
Right.
They could be.
Why not?
But then the company said, no, we want distinct bottles so that people will buy ours and everything else, which of course complicated things and made it more, I guess, more expensive in a way because people will mix up bottles in the same case. So you return it back in Ontario anyway to the beer store. And they have to figure out that this bottle goes to that company and that goes to that, instead of the old way that didn't
Everybody's
matter.
was the same. Yeah.
And of course, wine, for example, in Ontario, the wine bottles are recyclable, but not here in Quebec. Anyway, on that note, we'll have to end the program for today. And of course, if you have any thoughts, drop us a line here at the link at rcinet.ca. So for Levon and Lynn and Mary Claude and Chantal and Pierre, I'm Mark Montgomery. Take care until next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.